In the future, a community of 10,000 humans live in a giant underground bunker called the silo. They also believe that the silo is a very safe refuge because the air conditions in the outside world are declared to be very threatened, so that it can kill anyone who breathes it. After that, we were introduced to a married couple, each named Backer and Allison. Backer is a sheriff who enforces laws that prohibit humans from leaving the silo, while Allison is a staff member of the Department of Information Technology. Sometime later, Backer and Allison got permission to have children. They were only given 365 days to carry out the fertilization process. As a reminder, only the elites made rules to limit the number of births so that the silo did not experience overcapacity. Long story short, Allison finally went to the obstetrician Nichols to remove her contraceptives.
Because I'm no longer under birth control.
Allison and Backer continued to try to fertilize in order to catch up with the time limit.
This evening's entertainment.
Honey.
I know. I'll be quick.
But over time, Allison did not get pregnant. In the midst of this situation, Allison got secret information from her midwife named Gloria. Well, according to Gloria, Allison did not get pregnant because people with a sense of great desire like Allison were forbidden by the judicial to have children. Gloria also said that the obstetrician Nichols was a judicial stooge assigned to prevent Allison's conception. Because there was no strong evidence, Allison finally considered Gloria's secret information not to be heard. Shortly thereafter, Allison was reprimanded by her superiors for writing an article requesting the restoration of the history of the silo, which had been erased by the rebels. Allison also wondered why she was prohibited from knowing the history of the silo. Since this incident, Allison began to want to solve the mystery of the origin of the silo and why humans could live in the silo since 140 years ago, precisely after the rebellion movement was successfully stopped. After that, Allison met in secret with a computer technician named George. George then showed secret data left by the rebels. Once accessed via computer, this data showed the structure of the silo building. At the end of this meeting, Allison and George agreed to keep this incident a secret because they knew that this secret data could get them sentenced by the Sethan judicial. Time continued until finally, Allison's fertilization deadline was just a matter of days. Because until now, she was still not pregnant, Allison finally began to believe in the secret information from Gloria. The next day, Allison revealed Gloria's information to her husband, Backer. In addition, Allison also tried to convince Backer that all this time, the silo had been used by the judicial to detain humans. And according to the results of her investigation with George, Allison suspected that all this time, the outside world and the air had good and safe conditions for humans. In order to prove the lies of the judicial, Allison was desperate to remove her own contraceptives, which had not been removed by the Dr. Nichols. With an injured condition, Allison went to a crowded place to tell everyone that she wanted to get out of the silo. Immediately, Allison was immediately arrested for being considered a rebellion. Judicial finally granted Allison's wish to get out of the silo, and he was forbidden to return again. Allison got the last task to clean the surveillance camera outside the silo, which was connected to the screen. This screen was used by residents to see the outside world. Then, before being removed from the silo, Allison had time to say goodbye to the backer. At this moment, Allison also promised to prove that what had been said by the judicial about the damage to the outside world and the air was a lie. Once out of the silo, wearing a protective suit, Allison immediately cleaned the silo glass so that people could again see the outside world clearly. Then, on the way to leave the silo, Allison suddenly could not walk anymore until finally he died. This incident seemed to remind everyone, including the backer, that the air outside the silo was indeed very dangerous, as what the judicial had said all this time. 2 years later, Backer still felt lost Allison until he turned into a Moody. After that, Backer found that the computer technician George, who previously worked with Allison, had died by suicide. Backer finally examined a silo generator technician named Juliet as a witness. Sometime later, Backer also wanted to get out of silo to see the condition of his wife Allison and look for the truth of the outside world. After his wish was granted by judicial, Backer finally got out of the silo. Backers were surprised because the outside world turned out to be fertile and beautiful. Backer began to believe in Allison's allegation that the silo screen had been manipulated by judicial to make the outside world appear damaged and horned. Finished carrying out his last task to clean the surveillance glass, Backer finally left the silo. But on the way to Allison's body, Backer suddenly ran out of breath and died as if he had been exposed to the toxic air outside the silo.
Where's he going?
Seeing this incident, the silo generator technician, Juliet, was immediately upset with Backer. The scene then switched to showing Juliet and Backer's meeting before Backer left the silo. Long story short, Backer invited Juliet to the storage room for George's corpse, who had been Juliet's boyfriend. Juliet then convinced that George's death was not due to suicide, but because he had been murdered. Backer began to believe in Juliet's conjecture because on George's body there were signs of persecution before he fell from the stairs. In order to launch an investigation into George's death, Backer finally wanted to keep the information that would be given by Juliet after this. Juliet then showed the mysterious object given by George before his death. To answer Backer's curiosity, Juliet finally invited Backer to enter a forbidden room at the lowest level of the silo, which is the place of origin of the object given by George. Well, it turns out that this room is a dumping ground for a land digging machine that is no longer functioning. This room holds many rebel relics, one of which is the object given by George to Juliet. When she first saw this forbidden room with George, Juliet also realized that so far humans know almost nothing about the truth of Silo. On the other hand, the backer stated that the existence of these rebellion relics is strictly prohibited by the judicial, because it could cause great chaos if it became known to the public. In order to prevent this chaos, Backer confiscated some items and decided to investigate without the knowledge of the judicial. Backer promised Juliet that he would inform her when he got new information, But in reality, Backer never informed and instead decided to get out of Silo. This is why Juliet became very upset when she found out Backer had died. After Backer's death, Juliet was increasingly curious about all the mysteries associated with Silo. Because of that, Juliet finally ventured to explore the dark place under the Forbidden Room. But after knowing that in this dark place there is a very deep puddle of water, Juliet returned upstairs for her safety. After returning from the Forbidden Room, Juliet felt frustrated because she could not investigate the clues left by George about the mystery of the silo. Meanwhile, Deputy Samuel received a will from Backer. In this will, Backer appointed Juliet to replace his duties as sheriff. Samuel, who had known Backer as a good sheriff, finally tried to carry out Backer's will. On the advice of Deputy Samuel, Mayor Johns is now trying to make Juliet a replacement for Backer. However, Johns' efforts were opposed by the head of the Information Technology Department, named Holland. The reason was that Juliet had committed theft so that it made her unfit to become sheriff. But Johns ignored Holland's opposition because he believed that Backer had good reasons for choosing Juliet as his successor. Then Johns met with the obstetrician Nichols, who turned out to be Juliet's father. Through this meeting, Nichols told him that since childhood, Juliet was very fond of machines. As a result, Nichols finally allowed Juliet to move from the middle level to the lowest level in order to realize her dream of becoming a technician. Nichols also said that Juliet's mother and sister had died when Juliet was 13 years old. Because Nichols did not have much information about Juliet's condition, Mayor Johns finally went down directly to the lowest level to meet with Juliet. Long story short, Juliet refused to be Backer's replacement because she did not know anything about law enforcement. Johns then gave Juliet a Backer badge in the hope that Juliet would change her mind. Not long ago, Juliet finally agreed to become Sheriff Backer's replacement on the condition that Johns had to allow a team of technicians to repair the silo generator first. After Johns gave permission, the electricity at all levels of the silo was extinguished to launch the generator repair process. By utilizing backup power, the technician team tried their best to repair the generator. At the same time, Juliet and the other technicians also moved quickly. Because if the repair process lasted more than 30 minutes, then the steam engine had the potential to explode and damage the entire silo. With full struggle, the technician team finally managed to repair the generator. As a result, the ground vibrations that had often appeared due to generator damage had now stopped completely. Shortly thereafter, Juliet met her confided friend named Martha. As a parting gift to Juliet, Martha is finally willing to research the workings of rebel relics, even though Martha knows that it is against the law. At the end of the meeting, Martha reminds Juliet to always take care of herself and stay away from dangerous things. After saying goodbye to her fellow technicians, Julia finally left for the upper level to undergo the sheriff's inauguration process. On the other hand, the mayor of Johns finally signed the document authorizing Juliet as sheriff to replace Backer. In the signing process, James was accompanied by Deputy Samuel, who had been in close contact with Johns. After the signing, Johns went to the toilet to calm down, but soon Samuel heard a strange noise and was forced to break the locked toilet door. Samuel finally panicked when he found Johns in a seizure condition with a mouth that was bleeding. After that, Johns was declared dead due to poisoning of the drink he had just consumed. Samuel also believed that someone had deliberately poisoned Johns's drink without anyone knowing. Knowing this condition, Juliet could only remain silent because she was still shocked by Johns's death. Juliet met with the head of the Department of Information Technology named Holland, who is now serving as interim mayor. Here, Holland actually did not like to see Juliet chosen as sheriff to replace the backer, because in the past, Holland had caught Juliet stealing and reported it to the security forces. On the other hand, Juliet emphasized that she was forced to steal to help her friends, because silo security issues are more important. Holland finally forgave Juliet's mistake and will appoint her as sheriff in the near future. Then Juliet took the time to discuss with Deputy Samuel, who is the head of the sheriff. Samuel actually objected to Juliet being appointed as sheriff, because Samuel considered Juliet to have no knowledge and experience in law enforcement. Although Samuel's assessment had a point, Juliet still insisted on becoming sheriff to carry out the backer's will, especially through his plan. The backer advised Juliet to continue to try to find the truth of Silo when she became sheriff. After this discussion ended, Juliet was finally able to get on good terms with Samuel, until finally they made an agreement for mutual benefit. Through this agreement, Samuel will help Juliet to investigate who killed George, while Juliet will help Samuel to investigate who has poisoned Johns. But even though Juliet and Samuel have tried their best, their investigation has still not produced results. Because of a dead end, Juliet and Samuel finally stopped the investigation for a while. Day after day continued to pass. Then one night, Samuel was visited by the head of judicial security named Robert. Through this meeting, Robert informed that Judicial Judge Meadows planned to get Juliet removed from the security department, because from the beginning, Meadows was very opposed to Juliet's appointment as sheriff. But Samuel begged Meadows to postpone his evil plan because at this time, Samuel still had an interest in Juliet. Shortly after Robert left, Samuel was suddenly attacked by several mysterious men until he was cornered and could not fight back. At the same time, Juliet returned to the backer's office, which had now been taken over by Juliet. Juliet then accidentally found George's death file, which had been deliberately hidden by the backer from Judicial so that Juliet could conduct an investigation. Juliet also believed that this file could provide a bright spot about who George's killer really was, and what is the truth behind Silo. And Silo Part 1 was finally finished. That's the Silo series storyline from episode 1 to 4. Thank you very much for watching the storyline this time, and see you in the next storyline.